Sifu is the second outing coming from the developer Slowclap, with their first game being Absolver, a somewhat strategical fighting MMO. But just like Absolver, here we have Sifu, another game showcasing martial arts and technical beauty. I first caught one of this game during 2021's PlayStation State of Plays, and actually the PlayStation 4 version is going to be the version that I'll be reviewing today. So let's get into it. The story of Sifu really isn't that complicated. One stormy night, something goes down at the home of this old man, and this kid being the son sees something that he shouldn't have. 8 years later, the kid, who is now a grown person, is out to get revenge on the culprits that's responsible. But since those 8 years, of course, certain things have changed along with everybody's age. The 5 people who is responsible for your father's death have all went on to give rise to establishments according to their endeavors. So here the player must go into their domains to deliver karma or retribution for the past deed. It's pretty much a straightforward revenge tale with a touch of supernatural elements added to it, with the primary one being in the form of this charm that gives the main character the ability to come back to life, but at the cost of aging. The visuals for Sifu is nothing short of phenomenal, especially if playing on the PS5. From the very technical and detailed choreography the characters display within their martial arts capabilities, all the way down to the direction of how this game flows, ensures that Sifu is most certainly a journey the player will embark on. What solidified my stance on this game's visuals for me personally was how seamless the game transitioned itself to the opening credits. That pretty much gave me the feeling that I was about to watch a movie of some sort. Speaking of transitions, there will be many moments within a player's playthrough where not only the environments, but the atmosphere can change at a moment's notice, usually after a fight. This, along with other elements, add some sense of a supernatural or lucid dream-like undertone that can be hidden within Sifu's DNA. Sometimes it gets to the point where things can feel much more like an abstract dream, but the environments themselves are actually characters within their own right. Every stage does follow a theme, but what I give credit to are the multiple set pieces done within each level. There were times where the camera will change its perspective to show the player progressing in a 2.5D dimensional aspect, kinda looking like a side-scroller beat-em-up, just before switching back into its regular third-person over-the-shoulder 3D perspective. For me personally, the number one stage that perfectly serves as an example of the various ranges when it comes to the visuals in Sifu can be seen on a museum level. But overall, this game is a masterpiece visually, and all around for that matter. Now, this is where Sifu shines, or rather its core focus revolves around. Sifu is a third-person, over-the-shoulder game where the player must incapacitate everybody, and I mean everybody. You see, nobody is an innocent person. You could be talking to somebody at a bar and before you know it, they're kicking your ass, and well. So in this case, if you have that paranoia that the world is out to get you, well, hold on to that, because in this game, it's true. So that means that one must be prepared to defend oneself from the onslaught of opponents that want to see you dead who don't even know you. Now, just from viewing this game and how it plays, one can easily mistake its gameplay to be similar to that of the Batman Arkham games. And to that, I would say that you're somewhat half correct. But unlike those games, Sifu is much more complex, fast-paced, not to mention harder. If the Arkham games was like driving automatic, be prepared to learn how to drive manual stick shift with Sifu. The tools Sifu gives the player are light and heavy attacks, a block, and a parry system. Offense and defense, and knowing when to switch in between them is vital and must, I repeat, must be practiced and perfected by the player if he or she wants to have any hope of completing this game. Understanding all possibilities and factors that go into fighting, and knowing that everything is a gamble of risk and reward is going to be what takes you through the 5 stages that this game sees you traversing through. Let me dive a little bit deeper into what I mean. Let's start with being defensive. When a person attacks you, you can block, but if you take this route, the meter at the bottom of your screen, known as your structure meter, will fill up with being attacked repeatedly. Once it's full, it will break, therefore leaving you vulnerable and defenseless, open for punishment to be delivered to you. Another method within the defensive measures comes with parrying. If the player hits the block button precisely at the moment before an attack connects with you, you can stop them for a moment, and that bar I was talking about before and what happens when it breaks goes for your enemies as well. Once that breaks, they will be open for a takedown, which will be shown by these 2 button icons that would appear. If you hit that, then it's lights out for them. But not only that, you will be able to get a little bit of your health back and some points that will be very useful. More on that in a second. The third thing that you can do is dodge attacks, which is in my opinion the best. But again, it's all about your timing, learning fighting combinations, and your reaction speed. You can dodge high and low attacks, and depending on which attack you perceive it to be is how you will need to dodge it. If not, you'll just end up blocking the attack and you already know the death to your stature. And finally, the last, but probably the most simplest thing that you can do as far as a defensive measure is move around. Repositioning yourself and knowing your environment can play a vital role in your success. A stage could possess things that can help you immensely, like weapons and other areas in which you can dispatch your opponent into, so keep that in mind. Now on to the offensive techniques. There is something that the player must be aware of, and that's knowing when and the importance of using light and heavy attacks. A lot of people, especially first time players that I see, spam the light attacks thinking that it's going to get them somewhere, when in all actuality it's probably going to get them some distance, but not too far. You see, light attacks, of course, just like any other game, does chip damage, but in combination with heavy attacks, it can be used to push a person's structure meter to the edge to pull off a finisher, aka a takedown. Heavy attacks can not only disrupt an opponent's structure faster, but also can do more damage to their health. Utilizing this becomes somewhat of a juggling act as to use both of these combinations to equate to a takedown, or to pretty much destroy whoever stands in your way. I personally tend to start off with the heavy attacks on the men, seeing as though their structure are a tad bit more stronger, and I will start off with the light attacks for the women to break their structure. From my observation, starting off with heavy attacks on some of these women will defeat them, but I will be missing out on a takedown to get some of that health back, and I need health, especially within emergencies. Your light and heavy attacks come with combos when the right combination of buttons is pushed, but back to what I was saying about the weapons that you find. Weapons are your friend. They hit harder, do more damage, and can help level the playing field because these enemies are not your typical, oh, let's attack one at a time and take turns. No, these guys believe in overwhelming force and jumping their opponents, so fair fights or one-on-one combatants are seemingly only reserved for the bosses at the end of each stage. This game has a unique gimmick too, whereas if you are defeated, the player is brought to a screen where one can purchase move upgrades via points that you obtain defeating enemies. And quite honestly, these techniques help a little, but really doesn't do anything significant that can turn the tides in your favor. Again, this game relies on the player's actual skill. Most of everything you need to succeed is already given to the player by default. After the player requires whatever upgrade that he or she desires, you can bring the character back to life, but you will notice that every time you do this, your person's age goes up according to the number of times of death. Once you hit over the age of 70, it's a wrap. But you see, this is where this game's difficulty kind of rears its head. Once you beat a level, the age in which you beat that stage is then carried over into the next stage. This means that your performance from the very start of this game, I mean the first level, could determine the odds of the player successfully reaching towards the end of the game. The only way to make things easier to the player is to perfect their skills and get used to repetition, and I mean that literally. The player will find themselves replaying a level over and over again for the sake of completing it at a younger age, or probably even to farm experience points to purchase upgrades. I almost forgot to mention that once you buy an upgrade, you unlock it first like a down payment, but to permanently unlock that ability requires buying into that ability multiple times, kinda like a student loan repayment plan. Once the player permanently unlocks it, it will be there forever. This is very important to note because when the player hits over the age of 70 and dies, pretty much say goodbye to all of the points accumulated, not to mention your buffs and your experience points. So to reiterate, whatever the player hasn't unlocked permanently, say goodbye to it. This mechanic only deepens how brutal and unforgiving this game can get. But, as I said, there are some things that can help you a little though. For instance, you can find these shrines placed on levels that can give the player certain advantages if they meet the requirements to get them. There are multiple tenders in which you can purchase these enhancements. However, there is one that I don't necessarily recommend you to do. You see, you can purchase certain boosts with your experience points that you gain, which I personally don't recommend because experience points are precious and to be used to permanently unlock things as soon as possible. You do have level points that you can accumulate based on your kills, as well as easily be obtained the more you fight, and multiplied depending on what you do and also by taunting.
Oh shit!
To end this gameplay section, let me reiterate on some of the things that can help you, shine some light on certain things that can give you some issues, and things that you may not know. Number 1, enemies will come and gang up on you and pretty much just go to work on you with no delay. What can help you out is repositioning yourself and most importantly having a weapon on you. Using a weapon can break somebody's structure more quickly, do more damage, and when you block with the weapon you receive less damage to your structure. Number 2, the camera may work against you and cause enemies to snuff you out, so stay vigilant. Number 3, always use heavy attacks on the big dudes whose throws will probably annoy you. You know what, just use heavy attacks on all enemies that look like they weigh more than you, period. Number 4, use and master the directional dodge until you become Ultra Instinct. Players will have their behinds handed to them if they don't. Blocking and moving backwards can only work for so long. Number 5, unlocking abilities are capped at certain ages, so if you die too many times, unlocking techniques for a younger age may be out of the question. And number 6, this game actually has 2 endings to it. Going through this game normally and killing all the bosses actually gives you a bad ending. To get the good ending requires a bigger challenge, meaning that the player will have to spare all of the bosses. You do this by breaking the structure of each boss twice without you hitting the 2 buttons of death. So if you want to walk the righteous path and get the good ending, there you go, and good luck. The music of Sifu is composed by Howie, a DJ and producer who put out quite a number of records. When it comes to Sifu though, he delivers, and I mean he delivers. Now I know I keep talking about stage 2, but in that level the club music is just pure hype. This energetic electronic dance music gets the blood pumping and also above all else just makes you want to move. Most if not all the other songs on the original soundtrack, you can pretty much clearly hear the rich culture oozing from it with the blend of some experimental and ambient liberties. But if you purchase the deluxe edition of Sifu, the original soundtrack comes with it. I will drop those links as to where you can peep out Howie's works in the description below. I have never enjoyed so much the sound of a pipe being knocked upside somebody's cranium. The sound of glass bottle breaking from impacting somebody. And my favorite, that metallic sound that you always hear when a takedown is available to the player. These are just my personal favorite sounds that you might as well have to get used to hearing. Now the voice acting in Sifu was done very well also.
Yang, of course.
You've gotten slow, Sifu.
Even though this game isn't focused that much on plot. You see, Sifu is kinda like...
You just don't want to talk, really?
I'm just about that action, boss.
But overall, the sound quality is top notch, and as I said within the presentation section, it's on cinematic movie quality. And you can have Lucas Rosella to thank for that. This is one of the games where the player must hone their skills and practice in order to proceed further. There are no such thing as a difficulty setting within this game, so whatever happens, it is what it is. Sifu's difficulty was actually responsible for bringing up the topic if video games should be accessible to everybody due to their difficulty. This particular level is what really was kicking everybody's ass, and mine as well. Like really, I was about to throw in the towel too, but I ended up finding myself doing repetitious runs, and in doing so, I became a little bit more familiar with the character's movement and the game's mechanics to the point where everything just clicked. I guess you could say I kind of found my zen mode, or what other gamers would like to say, I got good. So much so that I found myself changing my initial stance on this argument to being like, well, maybe it isn't all that bad as it is. Maybe I just kinda sucked at it. But regardless of whatever stance a person may take on this issue, there's supposedly an update coming out soon that will add the option of a difficulty setting along with other things. Needless to say, I think Slow Clap heard the people's feedback, but in the overall grand scheme of things, Sifu is one of the highlights of 2022. The game pays homage to all of its inspirations. Visually it looks amazing, stylish and cinematic with a nice polish to it. The story isn't so complex, but if you pay close attention to the items within the game and people's dialogue, you will be shocked to find people's motives and resolves adds a level of depth to the characters who you probably may just believe is one-dimensional. The controls do take some getting used to, but once you do, it's a wrap. So with all that said, I'm going to give Sifu a 9.5 out of 10. I definitely recommend anybody who wants to challenge to pick this game up pronto. Sifu is now available for PlayStation 4 and 5 and also on Epic Games for Windows PC for $40. Go ahead and pick this one up, and also peep out that nice small live action video they did for Sifu. It captures the elements of the game quite beautifully, and if all possible, I hope they do a miniseries, or even better, Slow Clap has a Sifu sequel that might be in the works, because I would hate to see this title truly end the way that it ends. But anyway, until next time, be safe out there, and peace y'all.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit up that notification bell, and I gotta go.